So good afternoon, and I'd like to welcome everyone to the August 22nd, 2022 Park Advisory Committee meeting of the East Bay Regional Park District. It is 4:03 p.m. and Madam Secretary, if you would please call the roll.
Absolutely, Chair Obringer. First up is Vice Chair Tsutsui.
Here.
Welcome, Vice Chair. Member Arce. Member Arce not present. Member Burke.
I'm here.
Welcome. Member Carey.
Here.
Welcome, Member Carey. Member Chang.
Here.
Welcome, Member Chang. Member Claxton.
Here.
Welcome. Member Corkin.
Here.
Hello, welcome, Member Corkin. Member Deschambeau.
Here.
Welcome. Member Dieter.
Here.
Hello. Member Espana. Member Espana, I believe, is not present. Member Lacey.
Here.
Hi, welcome. Member Mahadevan, I believe, is absent. Member Nason.
Here.
Hello, welcome. Member Rickard.
Here.
Hi there. Member Robinson.
Here.
Welcome. Member San Juan.
Here.
Welcome. Member Simmons. Member Simmons.
Here, I was on mute, sorry.
It's all right. We'll count you. Member Simmons present. Member Skardoff.
Present.
Hello, welcome. Member Williams. I believe Member Williams is absent. Chair Obringer.
I am here.
Welcome. And in addition to the committee members, we also have Board Member Ann Wieskamp joining us today. Welcome to Director Wieskamp. We good to have you. We have Assistant General Manager Christina Kelchner joining. We have Chief of Design and Construction Lisa Gorgian. We have Chief of Government and Legislative Affairs Eric Feeler. We have Principal Planner Naomi Laval, Senior Planner Kim Tai, Management Analyst Claire Griffin, Yuli Padmore, Government Affairs Executive Assistant, myself, and Sarah Kennedy from PrimeGov. Unless I've missed anyone, that concludes roll call.
Thank you. So the purpose of conducting the meeting, as described in this notice, is to provide the safest environment for staff and the public while allowing for public participation. Pursuant to the Brown Act as amended by AB 361, the Board of Directors and staff may participate in the board meetings via phone video conferencing and or through a hybrid of in-person and remote attendance. The East Bay Regional Park District intends to hold meetings through either an entirely virtual platform or a hybrid of in-person attendance with the members of the Park Advisory Committee, designated staff, and limited members of the public to participate in person at the Park District Headquarters, 2950 Peralta Oaks Court, Oakland, California, and through the Park District's virtual platform, Zoom. If the committee decides to hold a hybrid in-person meeting, attendance by members of the public will be subject to maximum capacity of 5, as well as compliance with current health and safety protocols. And this information can be found on the agenda on the district website, ebparks.org. Do any committee members have any questions about the meeting procedures? Okay, I don't hear any or see any hands raised, so I'm going to proceed with the agenda. So the next item we have is approval of the minutes. We had 2 meetings, June 27th and July 28th. And so I would ask that we take these separately, as I know some of us were not present for one of the other meetings. So I just want to check before we take the vote for June 27th, if there are any questions from committee members. Oh, I'm sorry. I see Linda. I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wondered if this issue is still being considered, the issue of how our minutes are taken is still being considered by the board, or has a decision been made that will continue with these action only minutes?
And so I'll turn that over to staff, or or our board member that's present, if someone would like to respond to that or is able to respond to that today.
Yeah, I was able to, Eric Feeler, Chief of Government Affairs, I was able to check in with the general manager, and she said that will be a decision to be made in 2023. And I believe minutes are now summary minutes versus action for the rest of this year.
So
Okay,
it sort of answers my question, but it leaves me wondering how best to vote. I have abstained, and I guess I could continue to do so. Is there
You're
any,
welcome.
any recommendation, or that's my choice, I guess?
I don't have any advice other than you're past elected official, right? So vote your conscience. So thank you, Linda. Is there anybody else? Let's see, I'm just going through. Okay, so with that said, I don't see any other hands raised regarding June 27th. So is there a motion for approval?
I move approval of the June 27th meeting. It's Rick.
Thank you, Rick.
Second, Elisa, seconds.
Thank you. All right, Madam Secretary, if you would please call the roll.
Yes, Vice Chair Tsutsui.
Aye.
Tsutsui, aye. Member Arce? Not present. Member Burke?
Aye.
Burke, aye. Member Carey?
Aye.
Carey, aye. Member Chang? Member Chang? No vote. Member Claxton?
Aye.
Thank you, Member Claxton. Member Corkin?
Aye.
Corkin, aye. Member Deschambeau?
I have a quick point of order. I'd like to vote aye, but could the action summary minutes specify that we understand this is still to be resolved?
To be resolved. So an aye vote with your statement included in the next set of minutes. Is that correct?
Thank you.
You are welcome. So Deschambeau, aye. Member Dieter?
Abstain.
Dieter, abstain. Thank you. Member Espana? Not present, I believe. Member Lacy?
Abstain.
Lacy, abstain. Member Mahadevan, absent. Member Nason?
Abstain.
Nason, abstain. Thank you. Member Rickard?
Aye.
Rickard, aye. Member Robinson?
Aye.
Robinson, aye. Member San Wong?
Yes.
Member San Wong, aye. Member Simmons?
Abstain.
Simmons, abstain. Member Sparadoff?
Aye.
Sparadoff, aye. Member Williams? Not present. Member Obringer?
Yes.
Thank you. And I believe Member Arce joined us as well.
Oh, great. So Member Arce has not voted on these minutes, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so can we give her the opportunity? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Are you voting for approval of the June 27th meeting minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And now we'll go on to,
Sorry, I missed the vote, but can I vote in favor of approving the minutes as well? This is James Chang. Thank you.
sure.
Okay.
And
Chang and Arce, aye, and the motion passes.
Thank you. And I think what I would just say is if someone has a concern about how the minutes are being prepared right now, I would encourage folks to talk to their board member to make sure that that is clearly communicated. So next we have the minutes from July 28th. And so I am going to see if there are any questions regarding that. I assume member Deschambeau has the same question, as do others about these minutes. Don't see anything else. So at this time, is there a motion for approval? I'm sorry. I see member Jeter.
I just wanted to comment that I was happy to see the comments from the board, from the committee here actually included in these minutes. I think it's helpful so that it's helpful to the board. So I just wanted to give a kudos for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there a motion of approval for July 28?
I also move the Sigor startup.
Okay, thank you. And then I see Susie. So member
Yes,
Claxton.
I'll second.
Okay, great. Okay, Madam Secretary, if you'd please call the roll.
Absolutely. Vice Chair Tsutsui.
Aye.
Tsutsui, aye. Member Arce.
Yes.
Arce, aye. Member Burke.
Abstain. I wasn't there.
Burke abstain. Member Carey.
Aye.
Carey, aye. Member Chang.
Yes.
Chang, aye. Member Claxton.
Yes.
Claxton, aye. Member Corkin.
Aye.
Corkin, aye. Member Deschambeau.
Aye, same comments.
Noted. Thank you, Member Deschambeau. Member Dieter. Member Dieter.
I with the same comment.
Okay, Member Dieter. Aye with the comment. Member Espana not present. Member Lacy.
Abstain due to absence.
Okay, Lacy abstain. Member Mahadevan absent. Member Nason.
I, but joining in the comments of members Deschambeau and Dieter.
Thank you, Member Nason. Noted. Member Rickard.
Aye.
Rickard, aye. Member Robinson.
Saying I was not able to attend that one either.
Okay, thank you. Member San Juan.
Yes.
San Juan, aye. Member Simmons.
Abstain.
Abstain. Member Skardoff.
Aye.
Skardoff, aye. Member Williams. Absent. Chair Obringer.
I'm going to abstain as I was unable to participate myself.
Okay, Chair abstain. Motion passes.
Okay, thank you all very much for that. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Board Member Wieskamp for comments to the Park Advisory Committee. Welcome, Board Member Wieskamp.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I can't believe what an arduous process it is with so many members to get through just approving minutes, but it makes sense in this day and age, doesn't it? There are a lot of advantages to the Zoom process, though. You don't have to travel all those miles, but you can't have those casual conversations. And I do remember getting cookies and other things when I could attend meetings. Oh, well. Good times will roll again. Let's be positive. I think you're probably all aware of how the election turned out, but certainly I want to congratulate, and I'm sure the rest of you will, with the re-election of that one Colin Coffey, who is, I'm sure he was facing a race, and then he's so disappointed that he doesn't get to do it. And Mercurio, Ward 6, replacing Beverly. And my, very popular with me, Olivia Sanwong, who had, you don't know how much time we spent helping write that statement that was going to impress the world. And she didn't have to use it. But what I want to say, serving on this board that you're on right now really helps people prepare if one of us ever decides to retire. And you know more than practically anybody else out there in the community because you've worked on projects from dogs to trails. And I want to tell you how much I appreciate that, because there's some very hard to finalize things that come before us. And it takes a lot of work, and a lot of you've been involved in that. So my appreciation. The event, the Crevice Garden, how many of you have been there? If you haven't been, it is just amazing, just amazing. The whole garden is, but bringing native alpine plants from the high Sierra Nevada and getting them to a place in Berkeley, the stack of those giant rocks, all of it together. Obviously, you've got a botanic garden that's marvelous. Botanic Garden Bart O'Brien, I always love that Irish name. And the master gardener on this project was Michael Ulerio, who developed the plan and who processed this through. Bart was nice to share enough about this. It wasn't an easy project. To see it, it looks so natural, but you know what it took to make it in a fashion. It's like a house of cards with the plants interspersed, and it looks like it's always been there. So if you get a chance, go and take a friend. The person I was with says, you know, I think I'm going to join. I'm going to be a member of this garden because I'm so impressed. So great place, great timing, and everybody deserves a lot of credit for it. I suggested to Public Affairs that we ought to look into giving an educational film. I'm sure they've got photos as the process went on, and there were so many people involved, but I think people would be interested in why you do it. We all know what's happening in the world with climate change, how you managed to do it in Berkeley and do it successfully. So maybe somebody can make that happen. Tyler Ranch, how many of you have been to Tyler Ranch at all, the property? Not too many. Oh, Olivia, you've been there, haven't you? It is set to open this fall. We're going to have a soft sort of Sinolian event. I think they were a little surprised that it happened. It all started so long ago. I'm sure all of you are aware now, when you go to start something like this, you have to get a lot of permits. And these permits in Sacramento can take a very long time. The one thing we learned from this process was when it's taking a long time, check in with the community yearly to let them know, yes, we're going to do it. Yes, we're working on it. And these are the things left to do. But anyway, it's a beautiful park. We'll have a soft opening for them. And then later in September, I hope you'll all be able to come to the big opening and see the new trail. It really is going to be a nice addition. And the way it can expand into some of our unopened property is really important too. It is a pleasure to have served on this board. I've served on a variety of political things in the past, from city councils to, I serve on LAFCO now for special districts. And I can only tell you that if you want to feel good about what you're doing most of the time, and the feeling that you're pleasing most of the people most of the time, you want to join Olivia and serve on the East Bay Regional Park District Board. It is something that people appreciate, and they take an extra effort to tell you that. I occasionally get phone calls from people, and when I'm in the park and they get a chance to tell me they like it. How many of you have been to Ardenwood? I've got to tell you, even though it's not in Livermore, it is my very, very favorite go-to park. And that's because so many people go there and just relax. They may be shelling popcorn. They may figure out they've got some sheep wool there and what can they make with it? Little kids running around chasing peacocks, looking at chickens, patting bunnies, whatever. If you haven't been there lately, go. And of course, I'm sentimentally attached to Brushy Peak. Again, how many have been to Brushy Peak? Not as many in Livermore. Don't come now. come later this fall and enjoy the breeze and the beautiful views on a clear day. I enjoy it especially because it's the first park that I had the privilege of opening. And I knew the owner that we bought the property from. And if he had called me and told me what to wear, I would have appreciated it. I had on a little cotton quilted jacket. And let me tell you, what was he wearing? A huge mountain jacket, parka pulled up over his ears, and he kept smiling at me because it was cold and windy. But we had a great audience there because it was a new park. And it is a very special one to me. My son died last year, and we planted 5 native oaks in the staging area. I asked Chris, who is the supervisor, what would he like best in Todd's honor? And he said, shade. And anybody who's been to Brushy Peak knows shade will be appreciated by everyone. So when you go there, look for 5 trees in sort of a little separate area. But again, I'm going to miss, but I intend to stay involved in park business, visit as often as I can all over. And if there's a park tour, I certainly plan to be part of it. So I think I'm very pleased with the incoming people. And I shouldn't say especially for Olivia, but come on, I appointed her and I believe she's going to do a great job. So I couldn't ask for a better replacement. Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your years of service and also helping to support another woman for serving in public office. So I'm going to take a point of personal privilege and say thank you for doing that. And congratulations to Olivia. And I don't know if there's anyone from the board who would like to say anything or ask any questions at this time.
Sure. If I can answer it, I will.
Okay, and I'm looking to see if there's any hands that are being raised.
You're all so knowledgeable already.
Okay.
You didn't mention the date of the Tyler Ranch. It's September 13th. That's what I read. If people come.
I think that is, double check on the list. I don't have my calendar with me, but I think that may be the soft opening for Sonolian. They were rather unhappy with our earlier meeting. I think, Olivia, you were there, weren't you? And because they had lost track. They had really lost track of this happening, and they had not been updated for several years. And I can only tell you, knowing Sonolians for years, they are an activist group. The first time I knew we had anything to do with Tyler, I got a call from Ariel Iset, who lives in Sonoma. And he said, Ann, guess what I saw? And I said, what? And he said, I saw green trucks going up on Tyler Ranch. Does that mean we're going to have a park? And I said, well, it could be one of these years. Never think that Sonoma takes anything lightly. And one thing we learned from this experience on future parks, we're going to keep the natives involved and at least give yearly reports when things take so long. So what wasn't good, we've learned from. That's one thing the Park District is good at. We learn from experience, good, bad, or indifferent.
Thank you. And it looks like we do have a question or comment from member Carey.
Good. I just want to thank Ann for appointing me to this board several years ago. Thank you. It's been an eye-opener and very informative. Anyway, I will miss having you around. So.
Well, your trains are spectacular there. People love them. I can't tell you how much I appreciate all of you volunteers out there keeping those going, because it can't be easy. And making improvements while they had time off from customers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Skardoff.
Yes, I would like to offer a reflection about Brushy Peak. I went up there just shortly before it was becoming a park, and we were privileged to see a San Joaquin kit fox.
Oh,
Which is pretty unusual. It just came right up.
my gosh, how
We
amazing.
were having lunch.
Well, I can't have that, but 3 days ago, running behind my fence, I back up to the original Henry Kaiser gravel pit in downtown Livermore. And what was racing by my fence was a fox. So I feel like I'm out in nature all the time. Mostly I don't see too many other critters, but besides squirrels. And what I'm missing this year are the tiny little frogs, because our creek is absolutely dry. So they are now, you can talk to my incoming replacement from Zone 7. They're in the process of preparing us for floods. So we're going to be optimistic that we're going to have some more water one of these days. But they're doing a good job so far and following rules, Olivia.
Thank you. Member San Wang.
Yes, I just want to thank Anne again for appointing me to this committee. I'm really excited about the next phase in terms of joining the board. And what's great about this committee is Colin, John, and I were all on this committee together at one point a few years ago. I joined this committee in 2016. So I think it's a testament to what we do as a park advisory committee. And also, I think it's just a really great program that the East Bay Regional Park District has. So thank you, Anne.
You're welcome. And good luck. How's that?
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I don't see any other hands, but it sounds like we certainly, there's a lot of value to serving on this board, and it's a great training ground for future park board members. So it was a pleasure to hear from you today, Director Wiesenkamp, and look forward to future opportunities to work with you as we, because it sounds like you're not going away. You'll still be involved.
Oh, no. I am a dedicated Livermorian. I can say it.
Well, thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
And now it's time for us to move on to public comment. And so these are for items that are not on the agenda. And so I'm asking that speakers limit themselves to 3 minutes. And I do see one member of the public with a hand up, Kelly Abreu.
Thank you. The San Jose Mercury ran a headline this morning that asked, does the Bay Area have enough water to build housing during the California drought? But water is not the real issue. The real issue is urban growth limits like Measure D and LAFCO. This district sent a letter of concern opposing a utility solar project in North Livermore just a year or so ago. But the Park District welcomes 125 units of luxury housing outside of Danville with open arms in exchange for the donation of 700 acres of land. The San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District also supports the project after receiving 7 acres of land for a training facility. Some groups oppose this project. The town of Danville, East Bay Mud, Greenbelt Alliance, and others have filed individual suits against the Tasahara development. The Sierra Club joined in the court filing by the Greenbelt Alliance. East Bay Mud filed a 1999 lawsuit against building 1,000 homes in the Doherty Valley near San Ramon. That lawsuit was resolved when the Zone 7 Water Agency, chartered to serve Eastern Alameda County, gladly extended service into the Doherty Valley of Contra Costa County. Their version of LAFCO was happy to sign off. With so many government agencies and environmental groups lined up on both sides of the Tasahara subdivision issue, there's one thing we all know. We all know that they can't all be right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm looking to see, Madam Secretary, are there any other members of the public who wish to address this body on an item not on our agenda?
Chair, we have not received any further requests.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment. And moving on to our first presentation. So we've got two presentation items this evening. So the first is going to be the Robertson checklist amendment to the 2021 Pleasanton Ridge Land Use Plan. And this is going to be presented by Principal Planner Laval and Senior Planner Ty.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Obinger. Brian Holt, Chief of Planning, Trails and GIS. I'm going to introduce this item real quick, and then I will hand it over to Kim Ty, our Senior Planner. As you mentioned, also joined here by Principal Planner Naomi Laval, and we also have Chief of Design Lisa Gorgian with us, and our AGM Christina Kelchner. First, thank you. It's good to see you all. I want to say congratulations to Commissioner San Juan. Looking forward to working with you, and then just also thank and appreciate Director Wieskamp for her many decades of leadership on the board and her leadership on this project in particular. So the first question that when we brought this to the executive committee that we got from President Coffey was, what is a checklist amendment? What are we actually doing here? So this is a little bit odd, but it is probably some of the most exciting work that we do at the Park District, because what we're doing is we're opening up new parkland. We're opening up a sizable new area of parkland. So as Director Wieskamp mentioned, the Tyler Ranch staging area is under construction, and that's going to be completed this year. Kim will go into some details on that. But as we neared finalization of that project, we recognized that the roads and the trails from that site, which were all covered under the Pleasanton Ridge Land Use Plan, that was adopted in 2011 or so. They led to another area of property that could also potentially be opened, but that wasn't under a land use plan. Our board adopted a policy back in 2000 that was a checklist amendment policy that basically stated that we can open up new properties when they're safe and suitable for public access, provided we're not building anything new. So by allowing the public to access this parkland via the network of existing ranch roads, we're able to open up this parkland. So that's what we're here for. Kim Ty, our senior planner, has been ably leading this through a very interdepartmental effort with a lot of review from our stewardship department, our operations department, public safety, and others. So she'll have all the good details, but just wanted to introduce that here and take it away, Kim.
Thank you, Brian, and good afternoon, Park Advisory Committee members and Director Wieskamp. My name is Kim Ty, Senior Planner, the Planning, Trails, and GIS Department. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Today I bring you the Robertson Checklist Amendment to the Pleasanton Ridge Land Use Plan, and I believe the title might have been a little bit different. It's the 2012 Pleasanton Ridge Land Use Plan Amendment. That was when it was approved, not the 2021. So I'll go ahead and get started. As Brian mentioned, this is the checklist amendment. It's the modified version of the land use plan and land use plan amendment, whereby we can open land bank properties, provided that there are no new construction, and we can open as is, no additional development. And this has gone to the board executive committee. And so now I'm bringing to you this item for to be forwarded to the board of directors for approval of both the checklist amendment and the accompanying notice of exemption from CEQA, since there are no new construction recommended. A little bit about the project location. It's in the southern portion of Pleasanton Ridge. The property itself is 1,368 acres. Here's a closer zoomed in map of the property. It's highlighted in the brighter orange color. Let me, 1 second. If you can see my mouse outlining the property here, this is Robertson. It was acquired in 2012 actually right after the Pleasanton Ridge Land Use Plan had been adopted by the board. So unfortunately, it did not get included in the land use plan or the accompanying CEQA document. When it was acquired, it was expected that it would be incorporated into the Pleasanton Ridge Regional Park and be open for public access. Seen here in the map, you can see that it's adjacent to the Tyler Ranch property in the lighter orange color. This Tyler Ranch property, about 1,100 acres, it was included in the Pleasanton Ridge Land Use Plan. And so not only was the open space recommended in the land use plan to be open, but the 78 cars Tyler Ranch staging area that has been previously mentioned, which is located at the southern end of the property. And there on the map, you can also see that there are existing ranch roads, both on the Robertson property in the solid green color, green lines, as well as the Tyler Ranch property. So there are trails that go from the staging area up along the small ridge and into the Robertson property. There are a total of about 18 miles of existing ranch roads. And so planning staff, along with stewardship, operations, and trails, have worked together to kind of determine which ranch roads are safe and suitable to be open for public access. So this is really the highlight of this project, of the property, is the views that you can see from the top of the property along the ridge. Going up the small ridge at one particular spot, you can see a 360-degree view. There's the panoramic. Up the north, you can see Mount Diablo. Pivoting over, you can see Brushy Peak, as well as the Snow Ohlone areas. You can see Mission Peak. All the way down to Mount Umnum, Santa Clara County, and then all the way up to Mount Tam in Marin County. The public will be able to hike up from this Tyler Ranch staging area and gain 1,700 feet in elevation. Once they get up, the Snow Peak itself is over 2,100 feet, but the Snow Peak is actually within a little in-holding by the Alameda County where there are communication towers. And so the peak itself won't be accessible, but I don't think people need to get all the way up to the peak to get these views. Once people are on the property, they'll be surrounded by grasslands, forests, chaparral. They'll see ponds and creeks. And like many of our other parks, there will be cattle. This entire property was historically used for cattle grazing, and cattle grazing will be continued to be used as an important resource management tool. We were able to get some drone footage, so I'd like to show you now the drone footage, and hopefully you can still hear me. Seen here, you can see that the Snow Ridge Trail goes from the bottom of the Tyler Ranch staging area all the way up the ridge into the Robertson property. You can see kind of the communication towers at the top there at the Snow Peak. 1,300 acres for Robertson property and 1,100 acres for Tyler Ranch property. And over 18 miles of trails on both properties will be available for public access. This footage was provided by a drone pilot. Kind of on the ridge, you can kind of see our green vehicle. You're able to see Mount Diablo. And then as we pivot, you can see Pleasanton Ridge, which is actually at a lower elevation than Snow Ridge. Further in the distance, you can see Brushy Peak. And then as we continue pivoting, you can see more of this SFPUC's property in the foreground there, including their San Antonio Reservoir. And then as we're pivoting more south, you can see the Snow and the Ohlone hills and ranges, as well as Mission Peak. And this gate you see here along the trail is actually what separates the Tyler Ranch property from the Robertson Ranch property. So it made sense to continue and open both properties at the same time. Further here, you can see Vargas Plateau, as well as beautiful Niles Canyon. And so we're really excited to be able to share this to the public and show this drone footage both to you, Park Advisory Committee members, as well as in the future for the public to be able to see. The Robertson property itself, out of the 18 miles, staff has determined that about 12 of those miles are safe and suitable for public access. And so these 12 miles, because they're on existing roads and trails and no new construction, we have determined that the project will be exempt from CEQA. So in addition to approving the checklist amendment, we will also be recommending that the board approve this notice of exemption from CEQA. And as you can see back in the drone footage, that gate that separates both Tyler Ranch and the Robertson property, because people will be going up that trail and the trail continues beyond the gate, which would be very tempting for people to just want to continue. We do plan to open both the Robertson property and the Tyler Ranch property and the staging area at the same time later this fall. And so in total, it will be about 2,500 acres to be open for public access, about 18 miles of trails. So that would be the 12 miles in the Robertson property and approximately 5 to 6 acre additional miles trails on the Tyler Ranch property. And so the checklist amendment itself goes through the formal board approval process. And while that's happening, there's also the internal land bank opening process, whereby staff kind of work on a multi-division, multi-department endeavor to kind of get all of the tasks completed in order to open this land bank property. So a lot of these are tasks such as updating the park brochures, getting the information panels up and running, getting the trail wayfinding signage up and making sure that it makes sense for the public. And also doing our due diligence and ensuring that we're reaching out to the community, such as the small community, and making sure that there's an open house, that they're informed, that there are notices that are appropriate and letting them know when the opening will be, and ensuring that all of our departments are on the same page in terms of opening. So in addition to the board approval process, which we've gone to the board executive committee, following this PAC meeting, we will be going to the full board of directors on September 6th. After that, we will have the soft opening. As Director Wieskamp mentioned, on September 13th, we will have a community open house / preview event for the Snow community, which is the adjacent community to this Tyler Ranch staging area. It will be a chance for them to go to the Tyler Ranch staging area, kind of preview the trails, see this drone footage that was shared earlier, and get any of their questions answered. Following that, we'll be taking the land bank off the land bank list, and staff will be developing a post-opening monitoring and management plan in order to monitor and manage for any potential effects that opening the trails to public access may have on the resources that are on the property. And then following that, we will have a more formal opening dedication event. And then we'll be working with interpretive recreation staff to develop educational materials and other educational materials for the public. So staff is recommending that the PAC forward to the full board of directors a recommendation to approve the proposed Robertson checklist amendment and the notice of exemption from CEQA. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions. Naoma Laval is also available, as well as Lisa Gorgian, if there are any questions specifically about the Tyler Ranch staging area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Obrina, I have a question. This is Sharon.
Okay, great. Sharon, go ahead.
Kim, can you tell me if there's if the park district is intending to increase the park operations staff to reflect the increase in park acreage at Pleasanton Ridge?
Member Corkin, could you repeat the last part of that?
Sorry, does the park district intend to increase the park operations staff to reflect the increase in park acreage at Pleasanton? It's a huge and lovely piece of property, but
yeah, I see AGM of Operations, Jim O'Connor has popped in. Maybe you want to speak to the pipeline process real quick, Jim?
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Jim O'Connor, Assistant General Manager of Operations 2. Answer to Member Corkin's question, the answer is yes. We have a process in the park district called the pipeline, which is specifically a budgeting process where we plan for adding staff as we open properties to the public for recreational access. So the answer is yes. We are adding, I believe, one park ranger position associated with this, and also also FTEs in the MAST department, the Maintenance and Skilled Trades department, to support trail work in this unit.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you for that question. I see we've got a bunch of hands raised, so please be patient. We will start with Annie, followed by Neil.
Great, thank you. I just want to say one thing and ask a question. One is what I want to share is that I've been up on the property, and it's pretty breathtaking. I mean, this is a really big deal of a new park, and I hope that the district will lean in on the publicity and the storytelling and the partnerships opportunities with it, because it's I mean, it's a lot of acres, and it's a dramatic amount of acre. It's not just the quantity, it's the quality. And the question I have is around the naming, and I'm sorry if I missed this, but I'm curious if these two properties are going to be continued to be called Tyler and Robertson, or if they're going to be combined into one, and what the whole naming, what the district's staff is thinking about naming.
We use the name Tyler Ranch and Robertson just as a reference to the previous property owners. But when we open the open space, it'll just be part of the larger Pleasanton Ridge. So it won't be referred to as like Tyler Ranch property or Robertson, anything like that.
Okay, so did that answer your questions, Annie? Okay, great. So we've got Neil, followed by Irene.
Thanks for that presentation. It looks like a really amazing piece of property and amazing views. I'm not really familiar with this area at all, and it sounded like from your description, the only approach is from the south, from the Tyler Ranch staging area. Is it envisioned that at some point there will be an opportunity for through hiking or connecting to trails to the north, or are there no trails up there?
The current plan right now is only for public access to get to Robertson through the Tyler Ranch staging area. In the future, we are working on determining how to connect it to the larger Pleasanton Ridge. So that might be connecting through the Kilcar Canyon in the east, but that will involve like permitting and going out there with staff to determine alignments.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Neil. We've got Irene, followed by Bob.
Hi, yes. First of all, I would like to commend the Park District for the drone footage. I think when you are trying to show people what a park looks like, that drone footage is fantastic. It speaks volumes, and whenever you can do it in the future, I highly recommend it. It really captured the landscape.
Uh-oh, Irene, I think you might have frozen, or I froze, but I see other people moving, so.
Controversy in this particular plan of narrow trails being used for multi-use. These are all ranch roads, so there is no controversy, correct?
Yeah, Irene, you broke up a little bit, but I think I got the gist of your question. So I think what you're asking is if there is any narrow multi-use trail construction, and if we and the answer to that is no, there is not. There is There is trail that was constructed on the Tyler Ranch property that was previously approved, but that is not within the Robertson property or part of this action. So yes, to answer your question, they are all using existing ranch roads that are of a width that allows for multi-use.
Great, thank you.
Okay, we've got Bob followed by Igor.
Okay, thank you for opening up this wonderful parcel. I'm looking forward to hiking on it, which is my first question. Is it going to be available for members of the general public the day after the soft opening? And if not, then when? And the second question really is, when do you anticipate new maps to be available? And I assume that from a prior answer that the new map is going to cover all of Pleasanton Ridge.
Yes, so we will have new maps available as soon as the property is part of Pleasanton Ridge and opened right after the soft opening in this fall, and we will have a more specific date later on. But as soon as we have the soft opening, it will be available to the general public, not just the small community. And that's also when we will have the updated park brochures included in those information panels.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we've got Igor.
Thank you for this great presentation. This is really a huge piece of land. This is going to be quite the thing. I had some questions about the roads, the existing ranch roads. Basically, you're going to reuse them as they are, I presume. Or are you going to need to do some grading differences so that it has out slopes and doesn't create gullies or anything like that? And are there any plans to develop plans to do any further enhancements other than, putting up signs and so on? Do you envision any interpretive panels or any kind of structures later down the road? What's the kind of long-term prognosis of what kind of facilities you might want to incorporate into this thing?
So yes, we will have trail maintenance as part of the general maintenance of the property. So that will ensure like some grading and ensuring that it's safe for the public. We do intend to work with interpretive and recreation staff to put up interpretive panels. So that may not come in time for the soft opening, but we plan to have it by either the open dedication, or once it's already open, we'll continue to work with the interpretive staff to get those up. Was there another part of your question?
Well, another one sort of came up, and is it anticipated that these existing ranch roads are going to be adapted to be used as fire fighting access facilities as well?
Yeah, I think, thanks for the question. As Kim mentioned, we intend to use the existing ranch roads, and with concerns about erosion and other things, I think it's important to acknowledge we've owned this property and managed it since 2012. So we have a good sense of kind of how the roads operate and some of that. So, our operations staff have been making changes as they go. Regarding the ultimate trail plan that's in here, as Kim mentioned, we are looking at opportunities to connect this site to Pleasanton Ridge proper, for lack of a better term, and are continuing to look at acquisition opportunities that would allow us to go to the north. And then eventually, as we see how this property is used, and it is, as Kim described, and you saw the footage, it's quite a climb to get up to the top of that peak, right? So we're, as staff, really kind of interested in seeing just how many people go on beyond that peak, how many people are going to want to really go out and explore, because you start dropping down again and doing those sorts of things. So we'll continue to look at the trails and then see if there is a need to develop more of a comprehensive trail plan. Part of, and Kim mentioned this post-opening monitoring plan, that's one of the techniques we're going to use, is basically installing trail counters throughout the property so we can really understand where are people going, what is the visitation that we're seeing. So we'll definitely continue to look at the network and see what works, and at some point, may come back with proposals for expanding that or closing down roads that aren't working.
I guess one last thing I'd like to ask you about is there a Native American connection here? Are these known sites, or is there historical references or anything that needs to be recognized and incorporated into these sites?
So our cultural services coordinator, Ana Maria Guerrero, is not here with us tonight. I'll give my answer, and then Naomi or Kim, you may have more details. My short answer is going to be all of our lands have significance to Native American people. So this one absolutely does. Of course, there's significance here. And we're always in conversations with our interpretive staff about how to best communicate that. Of course, some places we want to really highlight that, other places we may not. And that's really done in consultation with Native people. So we haven't quite gone there yet. Naomi, Kim, I'm not sure if you have anything else you want to add.
But we do conduct the appropriate resource studies to see if what is out there, and from there our cultural services coordinator will make appropriate management actions and recommendations.
I was thinking in some of the parks, you do have programs or events that highlight the Native American presence and connection and history there. Are there already identified places in this big piece of land that might be suitable for that? Or is there an effort to try to understand whether there are or not those kind of sites?
Yeah, again, it's we're really sensitive to how we communicate Native history. So that's something that we want to do very thoughtfully in partnership with Native people and with our interpretive staff. So as we continue to develop those types of materials, the short answer is yes, this is a big piece of property. Like I say, all of our properties are significant. And so I think there are areas that are going to, that would certainly be that. The question is, do we want to actually advertise that, or do we very much not want to? And that's something, like I say, that we work in partnership with the native people who live in the area to really identify how to best communicate that history.
Well, the way things have been handled out in Vasco Caves area kind of is what brings up, just to my mind, is that there was a really strong effort and emphasis to be thoughtful and historically accurate and respectful. And I'm wondering if there was anything parallel going on here.
Yeah, there's nothing as parallel as and significant as Vasco Caves here, for sure.
Thank you, Igor. So I know we've got some members of the public that would like to ask questions. Bob, I see your hand is up. Did you have something else? Okay, maybe Bob left his hand.
No, I did not. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. So I had a question, and then I will turn it over to the members of the public for their questions. So I was just curious, this seems like this is moving really quickly, and I apologize if I missed it, but where's the funding? How did the funding come about to make this happen so quickly? Or is it not that fast if we're looking back to the planning going back to 2012? I'm looking at some other parks it seems like they're taking a long time. So if you could just share more information about the funding mechanism, that would be helpful.
No, understood, and I appreciate where your question is coming from. From staff's perspective, this certainly hasn't moved super quickly. Like I say, we adopted a land use plan in 2010. It went into a very long permitting process. We acquired this property in 2012, but then subsequently we were able to secure the funding, and I'm not sure if Lisa wants to chime in. I forget the exact date when we got the funding for the staging area, but really it took about a decade to get permits. During that time, we were looking for funding, and then once the permits came in, we had the funding in place and we're able to move forward with the construction of the staging area. So, so we're opening up this new land, but it's really been over, a decade in process. So as I'm sure, your future park in Concord, it's moving forward, but similarly, it's taken a long time for permitting. But once we got that completed, and then we actually took over possession of that property just earlier this year, now we're able to get funding, and hopefully things will continue to move quickly. So I think it's similar to that. It's kind of a wait and hurry up scenario.
Got it. No, and thank you, because this will help me to manage expectations, right? And help people understand, because when they hear about a new park, they don't necessarily understand all of the back work that has gone into this. So thank you for answering my question. So I see William has his hand up. So William, if you have a question, and it looks like, okay, so William is a member of the public, and Kelly and Kevin are all asking. So we're going to give everybody up to 3 minutes to make your public comment. So we'll start with William.
Thank you. This is William Uregi, Mission Peak Conservancy, former chair of the activities committee for the Sierra Club. We run over 609 hikes through East Bay parks each year. So very fond of East Bay, and congratulate Ann Wieskamp for her years of service. Thank you. This is an interesting conundrum. And I say that because I actually hike in these parks and love Pleasanton Ridge, love many of the parks in East Bay, but opening up new habitat is actually kind of problematic for the species that live in them. And this is a park that is going to be phenomenal. People are going to love it. It has amazing views. It has amazing plants and animals within it. And so the only concern I raise is, during our last PAC meeting, Mr. O'Connor pointed out that from 16 miles at Briones, it had grown to 30 miles of rogue trails in an 8-year period of time. And recognized that during that same period, for instance, over the last 44 months, approximately 120 tickets were handed out by East Bay Regional for illegal bike use in the parks. So if you go with 25 million unique uses a year in parks, that's over 90 million uses in that 44-month period with only 120 tickets. That's less than 0.00002 of the total number of citations handed out given uses. So we have a brand new park being created. And the concern I have, and I'm looking forward to this park being open, so don't get me wrong, my concern is that East Bay doesn't appear to have the mechanisms in place to stop rogue trails from being created. And this park is going to be amazing for mountain biking use. And the reason is because of the elevation and the trails up and down the peak, and the lack of enforcement activities that are ongoing today. So when you compare it to Pleasanton Ridge, which is laced with trails, this is going to be similar, and it's going to happen very quickly. And it's going to be a much bigger problem for the park district, because this park is going to connect to the Pleasanton Ridge. It's going to connect to Palomares Canyon. It's going to eventually connect to Garin. So when these are all opened, it's going to be a problem, because nobody can hike in one day 19 miles. Most hikers aren't going to do that, but that's what this possibility is. You could actually go from here down to Pleasanton Ridge and back. So congratulate the park district on opening this park. I think it's going to be amazing. And again, Director Wieskamp, thank you for your service. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Obinger, I am not hearing you. I'm not sure if others are. I don't see you.
Oh, whoops, sorry.
Okay.
So next I was just saying, I know that Kevin would like to make a public comment, and then Kelly. So Kevin, go ahead.
Hi, Kevin Smallman here, member of the public. So I tried my best possible to get educated through the documents that are presented on the district website about this property and the Pleasanton Ridge 2012 land use plan. I would really encourage the addition of a connection to Palomares Road from this property. The public, or the paved road, access road from Palomares to Sunol Peak, it's there. You're allowing access to the majority of it, but that last little connection piece is not apparent. In the documents, it says there's no access to the Palomares Road, but the connection's there. As a cyclist, those big through routes from being able to go from Foothill Road to Palomares Road and to get off of one of the most treacherous parts of Niles is a super encouraging loop. One of the most popular road cycling loops in the East Bay, that region between Castro Valley and Pleasanton, is Niles to Palomares to Dublin Canyon. And if you got to take out the most treacherous part of it by being able to go through Tyler Ranch and Palomares Road, it would be super neat. There's a pretty good chance that a traditional road bike wouldn't be able to make that work, but all these in-between mixed terrain bikes that have, 2-inch tires and really good gearing could make that connection work well. Additionally, for a road bike to have a 2-mile paved climb, to use as a hill climb training ground, more or less, is super attractive. The roads that get closed and allow for bikes to be on without having to worry about public traffic, the road population thrives on. Additionally, I've been, it's super cool this property's getting opened up. But I look at the fact that it's been 10 years in the making and there still isn't a land use plan for it. And as a mountain biker, I'm discouraged by the thought that, is it going to be another 10, 15 years before narrow natural surface trails are going to be added to this property? And that's discouraging. That's talking 20, 25 years. I've been engaged in this since 2012, and I've been waiting for the connections from Sinbad Creek to the top of Palomares Road to be able to do some really cool through rides to my home in San Leandro. And I just keep waiting. I would love to see them happen, this one or that one or both. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Kelly.
Thank you. So following up on what the gentleman just now said, the name of that connection between Palomares Road and, I'm looking at a map now, Cowing Trail up there on the ridge is the Cook Canyon Trail. And that is, it has an illegal landfill 400 feet up from the trail and 1,300 feet east of Palomares Road, up there on a little hillside overlooking this trail. People have been dumping, undocumented fill and building undocumented roads for years, for at least 10 years, 5-10 years. And, the stability of those fill materials, the toxicity, all those things, of course, are unknown and unproven as to their safety and stability. So that becomes, a little bit of an issue. This is the kind of thing that happens. You never see that happening on Park District land after the Park District acquires them. The Park District is generally pretty good about taking care of the lands, but when you leave these things in private owners and with the land use authorities of our government agencies, we're at their mercy to protect the environmental and zoning issues there. And very often, as in this case, they don't do such a good job of protecting these things. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. So I just want to check with Madam Secretary if we have any additional public comments. Not seeing any.
We do not have any additional comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So was this just, I'm double checking, was this just an information item?
No, we do need a recommendation to the board regarding adoption of the checklist amendment and approval of the CEQA notice of exemption.
Okay, so are those two separate motions then? It sounds like approval of the plan as well as the CEQA. Is that what you're asking for, Brian?
It's a recommendation to the board to approve that. I'm not sure that it matters which sequence you all take that recommendation.
Okay. All right, so is there a motion? I see, Linda, your hand is raised.
I'm no expert in CEQA, and I guess I'd ask staff the question. It does seem CEQA categorically exempt because there's no construction. But I also was interested in those recent comments, particularly the first speaker, that, you know, there will be a lot of new users, there will be a potential, and we know what goes on with road trails. And does that, you know, change anything on the habitat, since there doesn't seem to be a land use plan? And does that play in or change anything, or are we just kind of big picture? This staff still determines it to be categorically exempt, and those other issues are more operational that will have to be looked into to mitigate from that having an impact on this land.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Deschambault. There we have had a lot of conversation about how we would address the potential for illicit trail use or road trail building. And that is obviously a strong concern of all of ours and of our stewardship department as well. So part of what, but of course we can't predict what those things are in the future. So, you know, it would be difficult to sort of put that in a CEQA box, in a CEQA analysis. What we have tried to do here is that this property is very different than Briones. So I appreciate the speaker's concerns about Briones and the Briones pilot project. And it's different than the other areas of Pleasanton Ridge where really trails existed before the Park District even owned the property. This is one where we are going to be opening up, but what we're going to be doing at the same time is implementing this sort of monitoring plan. So we have a baseline assessment of the trails that are out there and that we can monitor as trails get built, and so that we can be much more responsive from an operational point of view. So from that perspective, yes, we do think a CEQA categorical exemption is entirely appropriate. We do have measures to address the concerns that have been raised. And like I say, no construction is proposed.
So just one more, again, it wouldn't be more appropriate to do a neg deck with a monitoring plan. It's still overall more of an operational issue with the category exemption.
So again, it's, you know, to be able to do a checklist amendment, it needs to be determined to be categorically exempt. And that was part of the criteria when the checklist amendment policy was adopted, was that, you know, if we're opening up land, it's safe and suitable for public access, we're not constructing anything new, that could be considered exempt under CEQA. Again, there's sort of, and you've worked in CEQA, I know, for many years, there's just all these sort of gray questions that come up. And so what we've really tried to do is to make sure that we have an operational ability to respond, to be able to assess and respond to those instances if they do come up.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I see lots of hands. So we've got Michelle followed by Member Carey.
Thanks, Carlin. I actually was ready to make a motion, so I didn't have any questions. So if anybody else wanted to discuss it, or if you wanted me to make a motion, I am happy to do that, and then we can discuss. So
why don't you do that, if you would, please?
So I'll make a motion that we recommend recommend forwarding to the board Robertson checklist amendment, and find that CEQA, that the project is categorically exempt.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Okay, Member Carey, are you seconding, or do you have a question?
I have a question, actually, with a clarification. I'm looking at the aerial photos.
Did I get I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'd like a second before
I'll
we
second.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Member Simmons. Okay, go ahead with your clarification.
Sure. I'm looking at the aerial photos of that area, and I'm looking at the map in the presentation, and I'm seeing a disconnect, particularly in the Tyler Ranch area. There's a whole lot of trails right out of the staging area that are supposedly pre-existing that I do not see on an aerial photo from 6 months ago. So I'm a little concerned that we've got trails that are being shown on this map that do not exist on the actual terrain.
So I think what you're referring to is the Tyler Ranch property.
That's correct.
And again, that property was included under the 2011 land use plan. There were trails that were included in there that have been constructed. They're just getting finished on that. Really beautiful trails that about 1.5 miles that were permitted and constructed. That is not the action before you. The action before you is with regards to the Robertson property. So no new trail construction is proposed on the Robertson property, and we're actually proposing to close down existing roads so that the net effect of the road and trail network will be minimized. And just really want to emphasize that we have looked at this very closely with our stewardship department and with our biologists, and this is not being done without a great lot of thought and sort of assessment in terms of where the habitats are, what can be opened, and ensure we sort of understand what the effects of this would be.
You answered my question. That was just a concern. When you look at the aerial photo, you do not see these trails. And okay, then I have no further objections.
Okay, great. Anything else that someone would like to, any other issues that anyone would like to raise, questions before we vote on the motion on the table? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Madam Secretary to do a roll call vote, please.
Absolutely, Chair. We have Vice Chair Tsutsui.
Aye.
Tsutsui, aye. Member Arce.
Yes.
Arce, aye. Member Burke.
Aye.
Burke, aye. Member Carey.
Aye.
Carey, aye. Member Chang.
Yes, please.
Member Chang, aye. Member Claxton.
Aye.
Claxton, aye. Member Corkin.
Aye.
Corkin, aye. Member Deschambeau.
Aye.
Deschambeau, aye. Member Dieter.
Aye.
Dieter, aye. Member Espana, not present. Member Lacy.
Aye.
Lacy, aye. Member Mahadevan, not present. Member Nason.
Aye.
Nason, aye. Member Rickard.
Aye.
Rickard, aye. Member Robinson.
Aye.
Robinson, aye. Member San Juan.
Yes.
San Juan, aye. Member Simmons.
Yes.
Simmons, aye. Member Spardoff.
Aye.
Spardoff, aye. Member Williams, not present. And Chair Oberner.
Yes.
Oberner, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Okay, so now it's time for our second presentation item. So this is the review of PAC rules and procedures. And so I'm going to turn this over to Chief of Government and Legislative Affairs, Eric Fueller, to provide that presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And I think in terms of the presentation, this is really more of a discussion, and it's going to be an ongoing discussion. And I am mindful of the time this evening. I did also just want to acknowledge Board Member Wieskamp. It's been a real pleasure working with her and over the years, and we're somewhat neighbors. And we've shared a few folks to help us around and whatnot. So just want to acknowledge her great service and frankly her tenacity. Really wonderful to see her working so hard on the parks. And I know Olivia will work her way into those shoes and do just as great a job as well. Just for tonight, I know Anne earlier mentioned that the PAC works on a lot of hard things. And I think that's really the gist of this conversation. We want to make sure that we are working on hard things, but we're also contributing in a way that is constructive and helpful to not only the membership of this committee in the Park District, but just the overall community. So with that in mind, I had originally thought we might have a discussion about how these meetings are structured and perhaps the number of meetings a year and perhaps a format for standing informational items. But after conferring with the chair and other PAC leadership, I think what was determined is that we really do need to have another conversation where we talk about the purpose of the committee, the mission of the committee, And then what value is the committee adding to board members? So I did want to kind of put that out there, Chair, as a possibility to really get, I know we'd sent those 3 questions around to the membership, and I thought really what might be the most productive use of time is to really get feedback on those 3 questions from the committee. And then what I'd like to be able to do is distill that information and come back with some additional recommendations, probably at the next meeting. I also wanted to acknowledge the government affairs team is all on this call, as is Claire Griffing. They're all supporting this work. And so I wanted to acknowledge their continued support as we move forward. And we're all going to be taking thorough notes. So really would appreciate, I think, actually opportunity to provide for feedback, if that would be appropriate, Chair Oberner.
That sounds good. And I mean, the 3 questions are in the chat, so hopefully everybody can see those again, and they were sent out in advance. I do want to be mindful of time, right? Because, you know, we try to keep these meetings to 2 hours. So might I suggest that we, you know, there's 3 questions. I'd like to maybe give 15 minutes to each and then see where we are with that, you know, and if it needs more time and we've got to do part 2, you know, at our next meeting, then so be it. But just so we don't burn everybody out. So why don't we start with question number 1, which is really the purpose, you know, why are we here? We're all very, you know, busy people who, you know, are selective about, you know, giving our time and our energy. So, you know, it would be really good to hear from folks. And I guess what I'll say too is if we, you know, if we get to like 5:45 and you weren't able to speak, what I would like to suggest is that you send in your written comments, and you can send them to me and Eric for us to compile into a summary document. So that's how I suggest we proceed. So what do folks think, you know, our current purpose, and how could that purpose potentially be broadened? So I'm going to open it up for question number 1. And Irene, we'll start with you.
Well, I can speak for myself of why I'm here. And the reason why I was excited to join this committee is because I saw it as an advisory committee. I thought that I could help advise the board on issues that are going to be coming before them. I personally did not join in order to be educated on all the things the Park District is working on. I can attend the board meetings and see their presentations or whatever, but I really saw it as a way in which I could help board members make decisions.
Okay, thank you. And then, so Irene, are there suggestions of broadening the purpose or improving? It sounds like you're, if I'm hearing you, you're receiving a lot of information here, but you're suggesting that, you know, if you really want to be informed on everything, you can take the time to attend the board meeting. So is there a suggested change or improvement that you have?
Well, maybe less informational items is perhaps something to consider.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Irene. All right, I see Neil.
Great, thanks. So the way I see it is, you know, we do lots of things, but I see 3 big categories that occupy sort of most of our responsibilities. The first is sort of like just like the bare minimum, the things that we are required to do. So looking at land use plans, budget, and ballot measure oversight. So I think, you know, in some cases, the informational items that we do have come through this body, we're required to review and pass on our recommendation to the board. The other 2 things I think are things that we could probably do a little bit better on. One of them is serving as a conduit for information, sort of bidirectionally, both in and out. So taking information about the goings on within the Park District and disseminating that out to the public, and serving as, champions for the park district in that regard, but then also collecting information from the public, especially from the constituents of our appointing members or bodies, and transmitting that back in, up into the park district to staff and the board. And I think that latter thing, I feel like often we could do a better job of. I would like to see something in place that sort of formalizes mechanisms for us to collect information and transmit information. And then the third thing is something that we've talked about in the PAC before, and that is taking on particular issues that may be a little difficult and grappling with those and really giving a lift to the board or an assist to the board in solving those problems. And the dog policy revisit from a few years ago, I think, is a good example of that. And the trails issue that will occupy us, and we've heard about already, I think, is another good example of that. So really sort of being charged with a particular thing and chewing on it and helping out with that. So those are the three big things that I think that are important, the most important things we do.
Thank you. And so to summarize, it sounds like so our purpose is to be a liaison, a sounding board, also providing in some cases subject matter expertise or insight. And so if I heard what you said, Neil, it sounds like there are ways to strengthen, the back and forth communication that is one of our responsibilities.
Yeah, I think there could be. I think that's something that we have to decide as a body, if we want to do it, and if so, how.
Okay, thank you. Rochelle?
Yeah, would it be helpful to start off with some of the purpose and mission that we were provided when we, the existing written purpose and mission that we have? If so, if people want to take a minute to do that, I don't mind reading it out. But maybe everybody has it convenient. I don't know. But in any case, I would, we do say, I'll go through the purpose. The mission statement is longer, so I'll stick with just the purpose. Right now, it says that we represent the public and be advocates for the public interest, provide feedback to the East Bay Regional Park District Board of Directors on action items, and provide feedback to the staff on proposed items. And I agree with Neil that there is a lot of potential in kind of a fourth purpose of helping to disseminate park district information back to the organizations and communities that we are a part of, because the district is so huge and the board is pretty small, and communicating with the community is a broad responsibility. And I think it's helpful to have people who are not members of the staff, but are independent voices who are involved and kept abreast of what's going on with the district, to be advocates for the district in the communities. So adding a fourth purpose along the lines of what, if I understood Neil's point, I think would be very helpful. I'd also like to echo his discussion of how the dog policy group seemed to be one of the most effective things coming out of the PAC. Yeah, I think it was something that seemed to me, and that was before my time, really. The dog policy was worked on just before I joined. But I thought that had a lot of positive impact, both for the board, but also for the communities, to better understand why the district might be making choices that it is as it moves along.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And one other example that came to mind for me that I wanted to share of when, I really felt like the PAC was very effective and helpful was, the conversations and the opportunity for the public to be heard regarding the naming of what is now the Thurgood Marshall Regional Park. The PAC was a place where whether it was youth, members of the employee resource group, organizations advocating for the African American community in the East Bay felt very comfortable coming and speaking to us. And I do think that conversation was, I will just say that was a turning point. I will share personally for even the city of Concord, which honestly had no, say in the naming really, but after I was able to share with my council colleagues about what I had heard here, then the council passed the proclamation or the resolution in support of the naming, right? So I just wanted to share that because I think most of us were here for that. And that's a more recent example where I felt like the PAC was very effective. So I'm going to take one more comment and that'll be Elisa, and then we'll move on to item number 2.
All right, thank you. And it's just kind of synthesizing what I'm hearing from a number of you. And it comes back to like our role as representing our communities and being that conduit between the Park District. I think that exists currently when we actually take the time to do the outreach, like we did with the dogs in the parks, like we did with the naming of Thurgood Marshall, and like we did with the bike, multiple trail users, right? That's something that does exist. And on the informational items, I think that's a part of it too, when it comes to relaying information between the district and the different communities that we represent here. I think the pieces exist and maybe just kind of the structure as far as how exactly we can go about doing it could be worked out a little bit better. But I think those pieces are here. And it's especially important, I think, Carlin, like you said, when it came to the Thurgood Marshall naming. And that's, I guess I was more involved in that than the meetings for the dog walking. And it's possible. I think that it's a really important role that we on the committee serve.
Thank you very much. So Kelly, I see your hand is up. We'll take public comment at the end of all of these. I'm going to go on now to question number 2. So the mission. And so, I think that was a great idea, by the way, Rochelle, to level set with reading. So the question, we're asking folks' perspective on the current mission of the PAC and how that mission can evolve. So Rochelle, if you have that in front of you, I'd like to invite you to read the mission statement for us, just so we can hear that. Thank you.
Yeah. The Park Advisory Committee, established by and for the Board of Directors, provides citizen input into policy matters of the district. PAC members provide citizen involvement and a channel of public communication to the board. PAC members support the district vision and help educate the public about the district's master plan, mission, accomplishments, activities, and issues. As directed by the board and supported by staff, the PAC will study issues, advise on subjects, and make recommendations and comments. Typical subjects may include, but are not limited to, the board-approved PAC ongoing goals, policy on public use and outreach, operations, finance, parkland planning, natural resources, acquisition, and the master plan. The PAC may also initiate projects with the approval of the board.
Great, thank you very much. So I don't know, Rochelle, since you were just reading that, I don't know if you would comment regarding the mission. I just want to invite you to make that comment since you just read the mission.
Yeah, I think that what we've been talking about with the the side of it of going and speaking with the community is included in the mission, although it's not currently included in the purpose statement that we start off with. And it fits very well with the mission statement to include that in the purpose. And I wanted to second the comment that the Thurgood Marshall, I thought that that was also a situation where the PAC was very effective. With regard to a lot of the informational presentations, in most situations with, governance boards and things, I think it's really helpful to have everybody come in prepared and ready to discuss, as opposed to using meeting time for teaching everybody about things. But in our case, again, this has to do with the size and scope of the district. It's just such an immense amount of information that it can be a little bit difficult. We read the packet, but then we get these PowerPoints. I think that it would be very helpful to us and helpful to the public to have maybe more, and there are good examples of this already on the district website, but to have more YouTubes that cover particular discrete areas of information, so that the interested public doesn't have to look up when did the board last take up an issue and go try to find that board meeting video and try to find that item on that board meeting video or on the PAC in the PAC minutes or whatever it may be. To have brief YouTubes that show those the PowerPoints and give the basic background information, I think would be, and ideally before the PAC takes up an issue, so that it can be dealt with a lot of dispatch, but also that PAC members can refer members of the public to a place where they can get a really concise but really good, because these are really good presentations, where they could find them on the YouTube channel. It's just a thought.
Thank you, Rochelle. Is there anyone else who wants to comment from the PAC on the current mission and how the mission could potentially evolve? Okay, I don't see any hands raised on that one. Again, Kelly, want to acknowledge I will invite you to speak after we've covered all of these.
Sorry, I did have my hand up, but
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Please go ahead.
I just put it up. It's just a really quick one. I was thinking that it would be interesting to hear from the board also on what their priorities are for us. What do they think is the most helpful thing that we could do for them?
And also, quite frankly, hearing, the purpose, right, from them as to, how the PAC could best assist with the board's work. So I would say to apply that question to both purpose and mission. Okay, I see lots of hands now. Okay, so Irene, followed by Susie.
I just wanted to let everyone know that in our agenda today, it did say what the board wanted. It also said about what the general manager wanted. It was a little hard to, there were 3 different sections for each, but it is in there. So at your leisure, just take a look at what they've already weighed in on.
Thank you, Irene. Susie?
Excuse me. Well, I'll echo what Irene just said and also echo what Neil said. I had very little introduction or training to the PAC and what my director wanted me to do. We've had discussions on local issues in the ward that I'm in with Dennis Waspy. And I did go to some public meetings, the city council and things about that, specifically about Mission Peak and some problems that were bubbling up there with the folks. But I don't feel like I get a lot of direction of what the board in general or what my director would like me to do. So sometimes I went through this information and there's a lot here. And a lot of, I just wrote, how do I do that? How would you like me to engage with the community where I'm not already doing it, you know? So I guess what I'm saying is that, yeah, just more direction from the board than the broad statement. Thanks.
Thank you, Susie. And I think that's a really good point, because, you know, some different elected board members have different leadership styles and view the PAC differently. And so if there's a way to, and some who have come through, like I would anticipate that Olivia is going to want to stay engaged, right, with whoever she appoints to the PAC, having served as a PAC member herself. But others come to the board with different experience. So that almost seems like that would be a good conversation, and even having some suggestions if there's someone who works really well right now with their director, you know, like I can share that Director Lane does reach out periodically to those of us who are in her region, and we have conversations. So maybe there's a best practice that could be put together so that there's information sharing, and also understanding, you know, because some elected officials, you know, they're the elected official, right? So they can be, I'm not saying any of our board members are, but I've seen some cases where they're kind of territorial. So I don't know. So trying to put together a best practice to invite the board members to see how they could best work with their PAC appointees. And I see Olivia and Igor, and then after that, we'll move on to number 3.
Yes, so when I think about this, I think about all the work that we did in regards to the dog policy. And I personally feel like, you know, when we were going through that, we were meeting in person at the East Bay Regional Park District headquarters. And it felt like we were able to work as a PAC, be able to work a little bit more together on that issue. Whereas right now, from my perspective in regards to bikes specifically in parks, and you know, I do live in Pleasanton, and this is a big topic in regards to the Pleasanton Ridge and biking on the Pleasanton Ridge. It seems that, you know, we're discussing it, but I don't know if we're getting to that same ability to work together on the issue. So I don't know if there's, you know, a subcommittee opportunity in regards to looking at multi-use trails and also single-use trails. And I can share, you know, that's something that I'm certainly really prioritizing when I think about the next year, is really trying to figure out these issues and hoping that the PAC will be able to tackle it, because I know that we did a really good job with the dogs and parks issues.
Thank you, Olivia and Igor. Igor, if you'd like to go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say that I really felt good about being on the PAC and participating. There's a real value, I think, in getting the inside scoop on what's going on with the Park District, which I certainly learned an awful lot during the time that I've been on the PAC. Now, when I came on, I only had some vague ideas, and they're less vague now. So I just wanted to express that. But I'm wondering if maybe we could use a little bit more specific direction. You know, as a member of the PAC, we're not really elected officials. What are we empowered to do in our representing the Park District to the rest of the community? I've been back and forth in my own mind about do I try to act as a representative of Park District when I say go to the city council meeting or chamber of commerce meeting or a youth club or something like that. It's a little bit unclear to me as to how far that extends and to what would be. I'm very conscious of trying to make sure I don't overstep my charter or my mandate, if you will, to do this interconnection with the community. So I think something a little more direct, a little more specific to kind of help put some guardrails on this, I think that would be helpful.
Thank you. Thank you, Igor. Okay, so we're going to move on now to question number 3. And so this is the final question. So the value add. So we're looking here for perspective on what value the PAC adds to the park district and regional communities, both now and into the future. And I'll start with this one. Just, I think that, you know, I'm able to, as one of the liaisons, and I know that that member Nason is serving in a similar role in Alameda County, being able to report back to my peers at the Contra Costa Mayors Conference, which it's not just mayors, it's council members, it's, you know, planning commissioners, members of the public, you know, they really, they know that one of the most popular things is our parks, right? And people love the park district. And so being able to share that information, and then that gives elected officials the opportunity to share that with their constituents. People are very excited whenever there's a new park or a park improvement in their community. And so then that, I think that builds goodwill whenever it's time for, you know, another bond measure, you know, as there's always one around the corner, it seems. And rightfully so, right? Because so I feel that I'm able to share good news with my peers, and in turn, it's a virtuous cycle, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So that's and I'm able to do that because of my participation here on the Park Advisory Committee. So I think that ultimately adds value because people know what's going on with the parks, they're excited about it, and they're willing to continue to support measures that will keep the park well maintained and growing. So who else has a thought? Michelle.
Thanks, Caroline. So I think some of the value that the PAC offers to the Park District now, and I'm hoping in the future, is to provide a broad-based, you know, community input on ideas and, you know, land use, as well as, you know, some of the policies we've talked about that affect the community at large, the external policies in the Park District. It provides staff an opportunity to bring ideas and options before a group of highly invested citizens who, you know, who are really connected to their community before they bring things to the board. And so one of the things that has always struck me is that there are things that have come to us that we're asked to just, you know, kind of rubber stamp instead of actually kind of working through some of those options. And so I think staff could utilize the PAC in that way, as well as the board, to hear different perspectives and to really thoroughly vet some of these things that affect a, you know, large, you know, 2 entire counties plus visitors. And so, you know, it's a large responsibility. And so that's what I think the value the PAC adds to staff, as well as the board, in developing policies that, you know, are at times highly, you know, lightning rods. And so they are definitely lightning rods at times, and trying to balance all of the different competing interests. That's my perspective on that.
Thank you, Michelle. Next, I see Elisa.
Thank you. I think it does come back to the comments that we received about community, right? The value is in connecting with community and looking at the people here in this virtual room. We all have our strengths in different parts of it, whether it's professionally or socially, the knowledge that we bring, the network that we hold. We all bring something to the table there. And that's probably the biggest value, is how we are connected to, whether it's our cities, our districts, or sectors. Or like, I remember a couple of years ago when I was working on the symposium, being able to bring in issues to the Park District and share knowledge and information, and then bring those back to something that benefited, you know, Contra Costa County in general. So I think that's a huge benefit that we bring to the Park District.
Thank you, Elisa. That's really important, the connection to community. Okay, I'm looking and I don't see any other hands. I'm just double checking. I don't see your hand, Neil. I'm looking, your hand blends into your background sometimes. Okay, so those are the questions at this time. I know that Kelly has been patiently waiting. So Kelly, if you'd like to make public comment on this.
Yeah, this document today talks about PAC roles and responsibilities, but one element is missing. There are no rules of conduct for members. One PAC member several years ago literally rose up out of his chair to wave a hate message at an audience member. That person was me, and I take affront to his actions. He literally overstepped his bounds when he got in my face. I have never experienced that sort of personal violation of hooliganism by any sitting member of any local government body. Members of this committee should meet with board directors and the chair to receive guidance and feedback. District staff, especially Mr. Fuller, and board directors should hold each member accountable and responsible for their actions. Disciplinary measures should be laid out in this document. Members who disrupt a meeting, exhibit moral turpitude, or cross the bounds of civil behavior should be removed from their seat to preserve the reputation of this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Madam Secretary, do we have anyone else who wishes to make public comment on this item?
Chair Opinger, we do not have further public comment.
Okay, great. Thank you. And so I'm going to turn it back over to you, Eric, to see, we've heard the feedback. I know that staff was taking notes. If we can talk about what next steps are. And the one thing I do want to encourage, if someone thinks of something later on, please do feel free to email your thought on these topics.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that, Chair. Any additional feedback would be very helpful. I think one idea that we suggested or discussed at the sort of the PAC leadership level was potentially coming up with some scenarios, kind of like how we do land use plans, where we have 3 or 4 different options in terms of proceeding forward, and the group kind of looks at the 4 or 3 or whatever number and decides sort of a pathway forward. So I think there's enough in here to put something together like that. What I also think is likely to be the next step is after the PAC agrees on sort of a blueprint of where you'd like to go. I think getting that to the board and having them weigh in is going to be really important. I will note one thing that came to mind as we were having this conversation just now is we can alter the agenda to reflect some of these requests. I think the idea of having a communication feedback loop, having that as an agenda item as opposed to everything being sort of informational items. I do also think bringing in potentially outside presenters and speakers could add. I know we did that with this item actually with Santa Clara Valley Open Space in Mid Peninsula. I think having some of those perspectives from the community would be helpful. And I've heard, I don't remember who mentioned it, but on the informational items, I've heard that, and I do think there's a foundation of items that this body receives every year that they should continue to receive, such as the general manager's report, volunteer programming report, capital projects report, grants report, government affairs report, and I'm probably missing at least one more. So there are some that are standing, and I'd like to get those more formalized on an agenda each year so that it's predictable. and also thinking about what other things we might want to tweak with the agenda to make sure that it's reflective of some of the questions that have been raised here tonight, and obviously previously back in November when we had additional conversations. So that's kind of where what I'm hearing right now. I think if you permit us to go back and maybe put some words to paper. I did mention earlier that Claire is on this call too, and she's worked with commissions and other entities. So maybe we can collectively come up with some proposals to run by the group and hopefully find a good pathway forward.
I think that sounds good. And so Eric, so do you anticipate that you'll have some kind of update or report out for our September meeting then?
I'm hoping, yeah.
Okay. Because again, I know that this took a while for us to get to this conversation, and I want to reassure folks that we're not done with the conversation. And so just keeping it on the agenda until we can get to a point where people feel comfortable. And by people, I mean the PAC and I mean the board as well, right? So, so thank you everybody for your hard work on this so late in the meeting.
And Chair, I think I'll put this item first on the agenda next time.
Okay, sounds great. So thank you very much. So we only have a few more items. So hopefully we can go through these quickly, as I know we're almost at 6 o'clock. So Eric, you are still on with staff comments.
Well, I did have one thing based on Chair, your comments earlier on funding to open up new parks. I'm not sure if this group is aware, but the Assembly Member Tim Grayson was able to secure $3 million in the state budget for planning of the initial entrance to Thurgood Marshall Regional Park, one of the Port Chicago 50, the south of Bailey Road entrance. So we've secured $3 million that'll be passed through from state parks to begin planning and hopefully some work on that initial staging area. And that's it.
Thank you. Okay, so our next item, PAC member comments. Is there anyone who would like to make a comment at this time? Okay, and I think we're losing people. So no comments at this time. So report from the chair. So we kind of just did this, right? So, I mean, since I last had joined you, we had a planning meeting. So the executive committee, as well as Annie Burke. And I do want to say a special thank you to Annie for serving on the PAC all of these years, and just the great contributions that you've made, Annie. And so it's my understanding that this is your last meeting. And so I just wanted to see if there was anything you wanted to share, if there was anything that anybody wanted to say to you who's had the privilege of working with you on this body.
Thank you, Carolyn. Carolyn, I'm sorry. That's very thoughtful of you. It's been a pleasure to be a part of the PAC. I've learned so much. The East Bay Parks needs a hospital and a school, and then they are a full-fledged county with everything that one could possibly need. And unfortunately, I only have so many hours in my day, and I'm being pulled in other directions right now. So I need to choose how I spend my time, and I'm trying to be good about that. So I'm sorry to be stepping off, but I think very highly of the district. I'm still here. If I can be of service, I'm still going to be running in Tilden and bugging East Bay Park staff about various things. And if I can be in service to the PAC, I'm still here. So thank you all for your PAC colleague-ness. And I really look forward to seeing what you all create going forward.
Thank you, Annie. And I don't know if there's anyone, I see Igor clapping. I don't know if anyone else wanted to say anything, but I guess I would just say, Annie, and I see Neil's hand, and Elisa's and Susie, or yes, so we'll go to Neil and then Elisa.
I have to unmute myself. I was just going to echo Carlin's thanks. It's been so great working with you on the PAC these past few years, and your contributions have been like so insightful and so helpful. And I think, we're super lucky to have you going to 30 by 30. Hopefully, we'll continue to see you in the parks and maybe here every once in a while if you have, a message to communicate to us. But yeah, it's been a good run, and I'm sad to see you go.
Thank you, Neil. Yeah, I'm just starting as a member of the California 30 by 30 Partnership Coordination Committee. So working with California Natural Resources Agency to help California reach its goal of conserving 30% of lands and waters by 2030. So really excited to be a part of that.
Elisa.
And I just wanted to say it's been a pleasure serving with you on this body. Your voice has been just so valuable, bringing things to the table that I don't think anybody else would have thought of right off the bat. You were right there. I look forward to working with you in the future, I hope, and seeing you around and having our wonderful conversations. Well, not in this room anymore, but outside of this room.
Thank you, Elisa.
Well, thank you, Annie. Please don't be a stranger. And please do let us know how we can contact you and stay in touch, as I'm sure many of us would like to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, so I promise we're almost to the end here. Board committee reports. Again, I don't think there's anything, we just had this meeting to discuss role of the PAC. So that was our big summer project in terms of board and committee reports. I don't think there's any old business or new business. I just want to see Eric and Madam Secretary, if you can keep me honest, if there's anything under those categories that we need to lift up here.
We are beginning the initial planning for a site visit and lunch out at Roddy Ranch. And I believe that the date that we were looking at is Saturday, October 1st.
And that'll be really exciting. Thank you for reminding me about that. Okay, so if that is all, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. And thank you, everybody, for your thought partnership tonight. This was a really productive meeting. I appreciate it.
Nice to see you all.